Rebecca had been working at Pinnacle Tech Solutions for 8 long years. But she didn't just work there. No, she owned the place. At least that's what she told herself every single morning when she walked through those glass doors in her designer heels. The marketing department was her kingdom, and everyone knew it. When Rebecca walked down the hallway, people suddenly became very interested in their computer screens. Coffee breaks got cut short. Conversations dropped to whispers. That's exactly how she liked it. Monday mornings were Rebecca's favorite time to remind everyone who was in charge. She'd arrive at 9 sharp, carrying her overpriced latte and make her rounds. The conference room would fill up with her team, all nervously clutching their notebooks and tablets, hoping today wouldn't be the day she'd tear apart their work in front of everyone. And more often than not, she did exactly that. "This campaign idea is completely off-brand," she'd say, not even looking up from her phone. "Did you even read the brief I sent?" Start over. It didn't matter if someone had spent 2 weeks on a project. It didn't matter if they'd stayed late or worked through lunch. If Rebecca didn't like it, it was garbage. And she made sure they knew it. Her assistant Daniel had learned to read her moods like a weather forecast. He'd been working under her for 3 years now, and he'd developed a sixth sense for when to approach her desk and when to stay far, far away. On this particular Monday, he noticed the slight upturn of her lips. That meant she was in a good mood. Well, good for Rebecca anyway. "Daniel," she called out, loud enough for half the office to hear. "Coffee now. And make sure it's actually hot this time." The coffee machine was literally 15 feet from her desk. But that wasn't the point. The point was that she could ask and he would do it. That's what power looked like to Rebecca. While Daniel fetched her second coffee of the morning, Rebecca opened her email. There, sitting at the top of her inbox, was a message from corporate headquarters. The subject line read, "New team member joining marketing department." She smiled. Fresh meat. Rebecca loved when they sent new people to her department. It gave her a chance to establish the pecking order right from the start. She'd seen dozens of eager young professionals walk through that door over the years, full of energy and ideas, and she'd watched most of them either fall in line or leave within 6 months. She clicked open the email and skimmed through it. The new person would be starting on Wednesday. They'd be working closely with the marketing team to understand current operations. Rebecca snorted. That was corporate speak for, "We're sending you someone who needs training." By lunchtime, word had spread through the department. There was always gossip when someone new was coming. People speculated about whether they'd be young or old, experienced or fresh out of college, easy to work with or difficult. Rebecca found her team clustered near the break room, talking in low voices. When she approached, they scattered like birds. "Don't worry," she announced to no one in particular, opening the refrigerator to grab her pre-packed salad. "I'm sure whoever they're sending will be fine once I show them how we do things around here." One of the junior designers, a quiet guy named Kevin, made the mistake of speaking up. "The email said they'd be working closely with us. Maybe they're experienced?" Rebecca turned slowly, fixing him with a stare that could freeze water. "Kevin, in 8 years, I've trained every single person who's walked through that door. Experience doesn't matter if you don't understand our processes. And our processes are mine." Kevin looked down at his sandwich. Right, of course, she wasn't always like this. At least that's what the old-timers who'd known her since day one whispered to each other. Back when Rebecca first started, she'd been different, enthusiastic, collaborative, even kind. But somewhere along the way, after her first promotion, then her second, something shifted. Power changed her. Or maybe it just revealed who she really was underneath. Now she measured her worth by how many people jumped when she snapped her fingers, by how many ideas she could shoot down in a meeting, by how uncomfortable she could make someone feel with just a look. Tuesday morning, Rebecca called a team meeting. She wanted everyone prepared for Wednesday's arrival. They filed into the conference room and she stood at the head of the table like a general addressing troops. "Tomorrow we're getting someone new," she began, pacing slowly. "I expect everyone to be professional, but let's be clear about something. I make the final decisions in this department. I approve all projects. I handle all client communications. If the new person has questions, they come to me. Understood?" Heads nodded around the table. Some people looked genuinely attentive. Others just looked tired. "Good. Now let's talk about the quarterly review. I've noticed some of you have been slacking on your metrics." The meeting dragged on for an hour. Rebecca critiqued projects, questioned decisions, and made at least 3 people visibly uncomfortable. She thrived on it. This was her domain, and she wanted everyone to remember that before the new person showed up. After the meeting, Daniel lingered behind. "Rebecca, about the new person. Do you want me to set up their desk? Get them a welcome package ready?" She waved him off. "Just a basic setup. Desk, computer, the usual. Nothing fancy. They need to earn their place here first." That evening, Rebecca stayed late at the office. Not because she had work to do, but because she liked being the last one there. She liked walking through the empty department, seeing everyone else's unfinished projects on their desks, their half-drunk coffee cups, their family photos in cheap frames. She sat at her desk, a large corner space with a view of the city, and looked out over the office floor. Tomorrow, someone new would walk through that door, someone who didn't yet know the rules, someone who would need to be taught their place in the hierarchy. Rebecca smiled to herself. She'd done this dance before. By the end of the week, the new hire would understand exactly how things worked around here. They'd learn that Rebecca Martinez wasn't just a senior manager. She was the gatekeeper, the decision maker, the person who could make or break a career in this department. She had no idea that the person walking through the door on Wednesday morning would change everything, that her carefully constructed kingdom was about to come crashing down around her, that the power she'd spent 8 years building would crumble in a matter of days. But for now, sitting in her corner office, looking out over her empty kingdom, Rebecca felt untouchable. And that confidence, that absolute certainty in her own importance, would make what was coming so much worse. Wednesday morning came with the usual buzz of office life. Coffee machines gurgling, keyboards clicking, people settling into their cubicles with their breakfast sandwiches and energy drinks. Rebecca arrived exactly at 9 like clockwork, carrying her usual overpriced latte and wearing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She'd worn her best power suit today, navy blue, perfectly tailored, paired with those heels that made her 3 inches taller. First impressions mattered, and she wanted the new hire to understand immediately who ran things around here. At 9:30, Rebecca noticed movement near the entrance. Linda from HR was walking through the marketing department with someone. Rebecca didn't look up right away. She wanted to appear busy, important. Let them come to her. But curiosity got the better of her after a few seconds, and she glanced over. The new person was a woman, probably in her late 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore plain black pants and a gray blouse. Nothing fancy. Nothing that screamed ambition or confidence. She carried an old leather bag that looked like it had seen better days and wore minimal makeup. Good, Rebecca thought. She looks manageable. The woman was smiling at people as Linda showed her around, asking questions and taking notes in a small notebook. She had this calm way about her, like nothing could rattle her. Rebecca found it almost annoying. New people were supposed to be nervous. Linda and the new woman made their way toward Rebecca's desk. Rebecca stood up, smoothing her jacket, preparing her welcome speech. The one where she established boundaries and made expectations crystal clear. "Rebecca," Linda said with her usual cheerful HR voice, "this is Jordan Chen. Jordan, this is Rebecca Martinez, our senior marketing manager." Rebecca extended her hand but kept it low and limp, the kind of handshake that said she wasn't really interested. "You must be the new hire. Welcome to the team." Jordan's handshake was completely different, firm, direct, the kind of handshake that meant business. "Thank you, Rebecca. I'm looking forward to learning about how your department operates." There was something in the way she said "your department" that Rebecca couldn't quite put her finger on. Not disrespectful exactly, just neutral. Too neutral. "Well," Rebecca said, already slipping into her mentor from above tone, "we run a tight ship here. I've been managing this department for 8 years, so I know every process inside and out. You'll want to shadow me first, learn the ropes before jumping into anything." Jordan just smiled politely. "That sounds helpful." "I'll be sitting in on meetings and getting to know everyone this week," Linda chimed in. "Jordan will have a desk over in the open area for now, just while she gets oriented." Rebecca nodded approvingly. "The open area? Not even a cubicle. Perfect. Of course. Daniel will show you where everything is." "Daniel!" Her assistant appeared within seconds, looking slightly nervous. He always did when Rebecca called him. Show Jordan to her temporary desk and get her set up with the basics. As Daniel led Jordan away, Rebecca watched them go. She noticed how Jordan stopped to introduce herself to people along the way. How she asked their names and actually seemed interested in their answers. How she didn't rush through the pleasantries like most new people did. Whatever. Give it a week, Rebecca thought. She'll learn how things really work around here. The rest of the morning was relatively quiet. Rebecca had calls with clients, emails to fire off, and a presentation to critique. She'd almost forgotten about Jordan until she walked past the open area around noon and saw her sitting with Kevin, the junior designer. They were looking at something on Kevin's screen, and Kevin was actually smiling. Laughing even. Rebecca couldn't remember the last time she'd seen Kevin look that relaxed at work. She slowed her pace, trying to catch what they were talking about. "That's actually a really smart solution," Jordan was saying, pointing at something on the monitor. "Have you suggested this approach to the team?" Kevin shook his head. "I mentioned it once in a meeting, but..." He trailed off, clearly not wanting to finish that sentence, but Rebecca had shot it down. She remembered now. Some idea about changing their social media strategy. She'd dismissed it in about 5 seconds. Jordan made a note in her little notebook. "Well, I think it's worth exploring. Mind if I reference this later?" Kevin looked like someone had just told him he won the lottery. "Really? Yeah, of course." Rebecca felt something twist in her stomach. She told herself it was just indigestion from her morning coffee. By afternoon, Jordan had sat in on 2 department meetings. She didn't say much, just listened and took more notes in that worn notebook. But Rebecca could feel her watching everything. The way Rebecca interrupted people, the way she dismissed ideas without really considering them, the way her team tensed up whenever she spoke. It was uncomfortable being observed like that. Rebecca compensated by being extra assertive, making even more decisions, speaking over people just a bit more than usual. She needed to establish dominance, especially with someone new watching. After the second meeting, Rebecca caught Jordan in the hallway. "So what do you think so far?" "Getting the hang of how we operate?" Jordan tilted her head thoughtfully. "It's interesting, very structured." "That's how you run an efficient department," Rebecca said proudly. "Clear hierarchy, clear decision-making, no confusion about who's in charge." Jordan replied, non-committal. "I can see that." Thursday and Friday passed in a similar pattern. Jordan continued her quiet observation, sitting in on more meetings, talking to team members, asking questions that seemed simple but somehow weren't. "Why do you route all client feedback through one person?" she asked during a Friday meeting. "Because that's how we maintain consistency," Rebecca answered quickly, though she'd never really thought about it before. It was just always done that way. "And how do you prioritize projects when multiple deadlines overlap?" "I decide based on client importance and budget." "What about team capacity and workload balance?" Rebecca felt her jaw tighten. "I'm aware of my team's workload, but was she? When was the last time she'd actually asked someone if they were overwhelmed? When had she last checked in on anyone beyond demanding status updates? Friday afternoon, the team usually grabbed lunch together at the sandwich shop down the street. Rebecca never joined them. It was important to maintain professional distance, she told herself. Leaders don't eat lunch with their subordinates. But today, as she ate her salad at her desk, she watched through the window as the group walked down the street together. Jordan was with them, right in the middle of the group, laughing at something Daniel said. Rebecca noticed something else too. Jordan kept pulling out that notebook, jotting things down even during casual conversation. What was she writing? What had people told her? A small seed of doubt planted itself in Rebecca's mind. But she pushed it away. She was being paranoid. Jordan was just a new hire getting oriented. By next week, she'd be taking orders like everyone else. When everyone returned from lunch, Rebecca decided to be generous. She stopped by Jordan's temporary desk with what she thought was a welcoming smile. "How's your first week going? Getting settled in?" Jordan looked up from her laptop. "Very well, thank you. Everyone's been incredibly helpful." Good. Rebecca leaned against the desk, trying to appear casual. "You know, if you have any questions about how things work, you can always come to me. I've been here the longest, seen it all." "I appreciate that, Rebecca." Jordan's expression was unreadable. "I'm sure your experience will be valuable." There it was again. That neutral tone. Not grateful, not dismissive, just neutral. Rebecca walked back to her office feeling oddly unsettled. She told herself she was just tired. It had been a long week. But deep down, something felt off. Like the ground beneath her feet wasn't quite as solid as it had been on Monday. She had no idea just how right that feeling was. The weekend came and went, and Rebecca didn't think much about work. She never did. Weekends were for her spa appointments, brunch with friends who worked in other industries, and shopping trips where she could show off her success. Work was something she left at the office, locked behind those glass doors until Monday morning rolled around again. She didn't check her email. Why would she? That's what Monday mornings were for. Besides, if something urgent came up, people knew to call her, and her phone had been blissfully quiet all weekend. Monday morning arrived with gray skies and the promise of rain. Rebecca pulled into her usual parking spot, the one closest to the entrance that everyone knew was hers, and made her way inside. Her coffee was already cold by the time she got to her desk, which put her in a foul mood right from the start. Daniel appeared at her desk around 9:15, looking more nervous than usual. "Morning, Rebecca. Did you have a good weekend?" "Fine," she said curtly, not looking up from her computer screen. "What's on the schedule today?" Well, there's the usual department sync at 10, and then you have the leadership meeting at 11. Rebecca's fingers froze on her keyboard. "Leadership meeting?" "That's not on my calendar." Daniel shifted his weight from foot to foot. "It was added Friday afternoon. I think it went out to all senior staff." "Friday afternoon," Rebecca repeated, her voice tight. She pulled up her calendar. Sure enough, there it was. Leadership meeting, 11 a.m., conference room A. She'd somehow missed the notification. Who called this meeting? Daniel looked at his shoes. "I'm not sure. I think it came from the executive floor." Rebecca waved him away and pulled up her email. She scrolled through Friday's messages, the ones she'd only half paid attention to while daydreaming about her weekend plans. Nothing jumped out at her about a meeting. She pushed the thought aside. Whatever. It was probably just another quarterly review or some corporate initiative she'd have to sit through. Nothing to worry about. The morning department sync was routine. Projects were discussed, deadlines were confirmed, and Rebecca shot down 2 ideas that she felt weren't aligned with the brand vision. Standard Monday stuff. But she noticed something strange. Jordan wasn't there. "Where's our new person?" Rebecca asked, looking around the conference room. The team exchanged glances. Finally, Kevin spoke up. "I think she had another meeting." "Another meeting?" "She's been here less than a week." "What meeting could she possibly have?" Nobody answered. They just looked at their notebooks and laptop screens, suddenly very interested in anything that wasn't Rebecca's face. That uncomfortable feeling from Friday came back, stronger this time. But Rebecca pushed it down. She was being paranoid again. Jordan was probably just meeting with HR about paperwork or benefits or something equally boring. At 10:55, Rebecca gathered her things and headed to conference room A. It was the big one, the one they used for important meetings with multiple departments. As she walked down the hallway, her heels clicking on the polished floor, she rehearsed her usual meeting persona. Confident, in control, ready to contribute valuable insights about the marketing department's performance. She pushed open the conference room door and stopped dead in her tracks. Jordan was already there, not sitting in one of the chairs along the sides like a new employee should be. No, she was sitting at the actual conference table, the one reserved for department heads and executives. Her laptop was open in front of her, and she was deep in conversation with Tom, the CEO. Tom looked up and smiled. "Rebecca, perfect timing. Come in, have a seat." Rebecca's brain scrambled to make sense of what she was seeing. Why was Jordan here? Why was she sitting there like she belonged? And why was Tom talking to her like they were colleagues? She slid into an empty chair, trying to keep her expression neutral even though her heart was pounding. "So, Rebecca," Tom continued, "have you had a chance to review Jordan's preliminary assessment?" The words hit her like cold water. "Assessment?" Jordan looked over with that same calm expression she always wore. "I sent it to your email Saturday evening. It's the initial analysis of the marketing department's operational efficiency and team dynamics." Saturday evening, when Rebecca was at her friend's dinner party, posting photos on social media, not even thinking about work. I must have missed it," Rebecca said, her voice coming out smaller than she intended. "I don't typically check email on weekends." Tom's eyebrows went up slightly. "Well, you'll want to review it before we dig into this conversation. Jordan's put together some interesting findings, Rebecca felt her face getting hot. Around the table sat the VP of Marketing, the CFO, the head of operations, and several other executives she recognized. And here she was, the only one who apparently hadn't done her homework. Maybe we can give Rebecca a few minutes to skim through it, Jordan suggested, not unkindly. I can start with the overview while she catches up. Rebecca wanted to disappear. Instead, she pulled out her phone with shaking hands and opened her email app. There it was. Sent Saturday at 6 p.m. Subject line, Preliminary Operational Assessment, Marketing Department. She'd never even seen it. While she scrolled through the document on her phone, Jordan began presenting. And what Rebecca saw made her stomach drop. Jordan had created a detailed analysis of everything. The department's workflow, the bottlenecks in their approval process, the budget overruns from the past year, the team morale issues. She had charts. She had data. She had quotes from anonymous team members about the work environment. As you can see from the engagement metrics, Jordan was saying, pointing to a graph on the screen, there's been a steady decline in employee satisfaction over the past 3 years. Turnover in the marketing department is 30% higher than the company average. Rebecca's hands were sweating. She wanted to interrupt, to defend herself. But the numbers were right there in black and white. Jordan clicked to the next slide. Project completion times have increased by 40% over the past 2 years, despite no significant increase in project complexity. This suggests inefficiencies in the approval and decision-making process. That was a direct hit at Rebecca's management style. Everyone in the room knew it. Additionally, Jordan continued, her voice remaining professional and measured, we've identified several missed market opportunities where the team had proposed innovative campaigns, but they weren't moved forward. I've included some examples in the appendix. Rebecca thought about all those ideas she'd dismissed. Kevin's social media strategy, the junior copywriter's suggestion about influencer partnerships, the designer who'd wanted to try a new visual approach. She'd shot them all down, often without really considering them. Tom leaned forward in his chair. Jordan, what's your assessment of the core issue here? Jordan paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. The department has strong individual talent, but there's a structural problem with how decisions are made and how information flows. Everything funnels through a single point of approval, which creates delays and discourages creative initiative. That single point of approval was Rebecca. Everyone knew it. She could feel their eyes on her even though most people were staring at their laptops or notebooks. Rebecca, Tom said, turning to her, I'd like to hear your perspective on these findings. Her mind went blank. What could she say? That the data was wrong? It wasn't. That Jordan didn't understand the department? She'd only been there a week, and she somehow understood it better than Rebecca wanted to admit. I think, Rebecca started, her voice shaky, that we've always prioritized quality over speed. Sometimes that means taking extra time to review projects thoroughly. But at what cost? The CFO interjected. If we're losing market opportunities because we can't move quickly enough, that's a problem. Jordan glanced at Rebecca, and for just a moment, there was something in her eyes. Not triumph, not even satisfaction. It almost looked like sympathy. The meeting continued for another hour. Rebecca barely spoke. She felt like she was watching her kingdom crumble in slow motion, and she was powerless to stop it. When the meeting finally ended, people filed out quickly. Rebecca sat frozen in her chair, staring at her phone screen, at Jordan's report with all its damning evidence. Jordan was packing up her laptop. They were the last two in the room. Rebecca, Jordan said quietly. Rebecca looked up, expecting to see smugness or victory. Instead, Jordan's expression was neutral, professional. I know this is difficult, Jordan said, but these conversations are necessary for growth, for everyone. Then she left, leaving Rebecca alone in the empty conference room, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. Something was very, very wrong here, and Rebecca had a sinking feeling that she was about to find out exactly what it was. Rebecca sat in that empty conference room for 10 minutes after Jordan left. Maybe longer. Time felt weird, like it was moving too fast and too slow at the same time. Her mind kept replaying moments from the meeting. The charts, the data, the way everyone had nodded along with Jordan's presentation while barely looking at her. Finally, she forced herself to stand up. Her legs felt shaky, but she made herself walk back to her desk with her head high. People were watching. They were always watching. She couldn't let them see her rattled. Daniel was hovering near her office when she got back. "How was the meeting?" "Fine," she snapped, brushing past him. "Hold my calls." She closed her door, something she rarely did, and collapsed into her chair. Her hands were still trembling slightly as she opened her laptop and pulled up that email from Saturday night. The one she'd ignored while she was out living her life, completely unaware that someone was documenting all her failures. The report was worse when she read it in detail. Jordan had interviewed team members. Not formally, probably. Just casual conversations during those lunches and coffee breaks. But people had talked. They'd told her things they'd never said to. Rebecca's face, team. Members report feeling undervalued and hesitant to share ideas. Multiple staff mentioned that feedback is often delivered in a demoralizing manner. Several employees expressed concern about the lack of professional development, opportunities. Each line felt like a punch to the gut. This is what people really thought? This is how they saw her? Rebecca wanted to be angry. She wanted to storm out there and demand to know who had said these things. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the fact that deep down, in a place she usually refused to look, she knew it was true. She spent the next hour trying to work, but her focus was shot. Every email felt pointless. Every task felt meaningless. Her entire sense of control had evaporated in the space of one meeting. Around 2 o'clock, she couldn't take it anymore. She needed answers. She needed to know what was really going on. Rebecca grabbed her phone and headed straight to the VP of Marketing's office. Patricia had been with the company for 15 years. She'd know what was happening. She had to. Patricia was on a call when Rebecca arrived, but she wrapped it up quickly when she saw Rebecca standing in the doorway. "Rebecca, come in. Close the door," that tone. That careful, measured tone. Rebecca had heard it before, but never directed at her. It was the tone people used when they were about to deliver bad news. "Patricia, I need you to be straight with me. What's going on? Who is Jordan really?" Patricia leaned back in her chair and let out a long breath. "You didn't read the emails from corporate, did you?" "What emails?" "Rebecca, there were 3 emails over the past month. All marked as high priority. All about organizational changes and new leadership." Rebecca felt like the floor was tilting beneath her. "I get hundreds of emails. I can't read every single one. These weren't just any emails. They were from the CEO's office." Patricia turned her computer screen toward Rebecca. She pulled up an email dated 3 weeks ago. The subject line read, "Welcoming our new Chief Marketing Officer." The word swam in front of Rebecca's eyes. Chief Marketing Officer, CMO. That was the position above Patricia. That was the top of the entire marketing division. "No," Rebecca whispered. "No, that can't be right. Jordan is a new hire. She's been sitting in the open area. She's been asking basic questions." Patricia's expression was sympathetic, which somehow made it worse. Jordan Chen was brought in from Maxwell Industries. She was their VP of marketing for 6 years. Before that, she helped turn around 3 struggling marketing departments at Fortune 500 companies. The board specifically recruited her to restructure our entire marketing division. Rebecca grabbed the edge of Patricia's desk to steady herself. But she didn't say anything. She just let me treat her like a new hire who needed training, Patricia finished gently. That was intentional. Her first week was an evaluation period. She wanted to observe the department's actual operations without people changing their behavior. Because they knew she was the new boss. The room felt like it was spinning. Every interaction with Jordan played through Rebecca's mind in a new, horrible light. Every condescending comment she'd made. Every time she'd interrupted or dismissed her. The way she'd assigned Jordan that basic desk in the open area like she was an intern. "I didn't know," Rebecca said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You would have known if you'd read your emails. All of them." Rebecca thought about her email habits. How she'd mark things as read later and then forget about them. How she'd skim subject lines and delete anything that looked like corporate announcements. How she'd been so confident in her position that she'd stopped paying attention to what was happening above her. "What happens now?" Rebecca asked, even though she was terrified of the answer. Patricia folded her hands on her desk. "Jordan starts officially tomorrow. She'll be moving into the CMO office. There's going to be an all-hands meeting at 9 a.m. where she'll be formally introduced. And me? I honestly don't know, Rebecca. That's between you and Jordan. Rebecca left Patricia's office in a daze. She walked through the marketing department like a ghost, seeing everything differently now. The way people had relaxed around Jordan, the way they'd opened up to her. They'd known something was different about her, even if they didn't know exactly what. Had everyone known except her? She made it back to her desk and just sat there, staring at her computer screen without really seeing it. Daniel knocked softly on her doorframe. Rebecca, are you okay? You look pale. I'm fine, she said automatically. Then, because she couldn't hold it in anymore, Daniel, did you know? About Jordan? He looked uncomfortable. I saw an email a few weeks ago about a new CMO starting, but I didn't put it together until the leadership meeting today. I swear, at least someone had been as clueless as her. That was small comfort. The rest of the afternoon crawled by. Rebecca tried to look busy, but she couldn't focus on anything. She kept opening her email and scrolling back through the past month, finding all the messages she'd missed. They were all there. Announcements about the search for a new CMO, updates about the hiring process, the final welcome message with Jordan's photo and impressive biography. She'd missed all of it. Too busy feeling important to pay attention to the things that actually mattered. At 5 o'clock, when people started packing up to leave, Rebecca finally did something she should have done days ago. She pulled up Jordan's email and started typing. Jordan, I need to speak with you. Would you have time tomorrow morning before the all-hands meeting? The response came back in less than 5 minutes, of course. My office at 8 a.m., her office. Not the temporary desk in the open area. Her actual office, the big corner one that used to belong to the previous CMO. Rebecca typed back a simple thank you and closed her laptop. She sat there for a long time after everyone else had gone home. The office got quiet, the way it always did in the evening. But this time the silence didn't feel like power. It felt like loneliness. Rebecca thought about the past 8 years. All the people she'd pushed around. All the ideas she'd dismissed. All the opportunities she'd wasted to actually lead instead of just control. She thought about tomorrow morning's meeting. About walking into Jordan's office. About facing the person she'd treated like an underling, who was now her boss. The person who had watched her at her worst and had documented every single flaw. Rebecca had no idea what Jordan was going to say to her tomorrow. Whether she'd be fired on the spot or given some impossible ultimatum. But as she finally stood up to leave, turning off her desk lamp and grabbing her bag, she realized something. She deserved whatever was coming. For the first time in 8 years, Rebecca understood what it felt like to be on the other side of the power dynamic. And it was terrifying. She walked out of the building into the parking lot, where her car sat alone under the dim lights. The rain had started, light but steady, and she didn't bother running to avoid it. Tomorrow everything would change. Her kingdom was gone. Her power was gone, and she had no one to blame but herself. The only question now was whether she'd get a chance to do better, or if this was the end of her career at Pinnacle Tech Solutions entirely. She'd find out in the morning. Rebecca didn't sleep much that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Jordan's calm face. That professional smile. Those notes in that worn leather notebook. She'd been writing down everything, documenting Rebecca's behavior like a scientist studying a specimen. She got to the office at 7:30, a full hour before her meeting with Jordan. The building was nearly empty, just security and a few early birds from other departments. Rebecca made her way to the executive floor, something she rarely did. Her domain had always been the marketing department. Up here felt foreign, intimidating. Jordan's office, the big corner one with windows overlooking the city, had its lights on. Of course she was already there. Rebecca stood outside the door for a moment, trying to gather courage she wasn't sure she had anymore. She knocked softly. "Come in," Jordan's voice called out. Rebecca pushed open the door and stepped into what used to be her old boss's office. Jordan had already made it her own. There were books on the shelves, a few tasteful plants, and her laptop set up on the large desk. She looked comfortable there, like she belonged. "Rebecca, please have a seat." Rebecca sat in one of the chairs across from Jordan's desk, the same chairs where she used to sit during meetings with the previous CMO, back when she thought she was on top of the world. Now she felt like a student called to the principal's office. Jordan closed her laptop and gave Rebecca her full attention. "Thank you for reaching out. I appreciate you wanting to talk before the all-hands meeting. I needed to apologize, Rebecca blurted out. The words came faster than she'd planned. I had no idea who you were. I treated you like I was incredibly disrespectful, and I'm sorry. Jordan nodded slowly. I appreciate the apology, but I want to be clear about something. The way you treated me isn't actually my biggest concern. Rebecca felt her stomach drop. What do you mean? Rebecca, I've been in this industry for 20 years. I've dealt with difficult people before. What concerns me more is how you've been treating your team, the people who work under you every single day. The words hit harder than Rebecca expected. She opened her mouth to defend herself, then closed it. What could she say? The data was in that report. The quotes from team members. The turnover rates. The declined morale. I want to be direct with you. Jordan continued, her tone professional but not unkind. You have valuable institutional knowledge. You understand our clients. You know the history of campaigns and projects. That matters. But your management style is creating a toxic environment that's holding the entire department back. Rebecca felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them back. She would not cry, not here, not now. Over the past week, Jordan said, I've talked to your team members. Not formally, just conversations. And do you know what I heard? I heard about talented people who are afraid to share ideas. I heard about designers who second-guess every creative choice because they're worried about being shot down in front of everyone. I heard about Daniel, your assistant, who sets 3 alarms every morning because he's anxious about being even 1 minute late. Each word was like a small cut. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, Rebecca thought distantly. I also heard, Jordan continued, about a Rebecca from 8 years ago who was different, who used to encourage collaboration, who celebrated wins with her team. Several people mentioned they remembered that version of you. Rebecca looked down at her hands. I don't know when I changed. Or why, I thought being tough meant being a good leader. There's a difference between being tough and being harsh. Between having standards and being impossible to please. Between leading and controlling. Jordan leaned forward slightly. Here's the situation, Rebecca. You have 2 options, and I need you to really think about them before you decide. Rebecca's heart was pounding. This was it. The moment that would determine her future. Option 1, you can leave the company. We'll provide a generous severance package, strong references for the work you've done, and support in finding your next opportunity. No hard feelings. Sometimes a fresh start is what someone needs. Rebecca swallowed hard. Leave Pinnacle? This place had been her life for 8 years. Option 2. You stay, but things change. Significantly. You'd work with me on a professional development plan. We'd work on collaborative leadership skills, emotional intelligence, and building trust with your team. It won't be easy. You'll have to unlearn behaviors you've spent years developing. You'll have to be humble enough to admit when you're wrong, and you'll have to genuinely care about the people you work with, not just the results they produce. Jordan paused, letting the weight of the options sink in. I'm not going to lie to you, Rebecca. If you choose option 2, there will be times when you'll want to quit, times when I'll have to call you out on falling back into old patterns, times when you'll feel frustrated and embarrassed. But if you stick with it, if you really commit to changing, you could become the leader you have the potential to be. Rebecca sat there, staring at a spot on Jordan's desk, her mind racing. Part of her wanted to take option 1, to walk away with her pride somewhat intact, to start over somewhere new where nobody knew about this humiliation. But another part of her, a part she'd buried deep down, remembered why she'd gotten into marketing in the first place. She'd loved the creativity, the collaboration, the thrill of seeing an idea come to life through teamwork. When had she stopped loving it? When had it become about power instead of passion? I want option 2, Rebecca heard herself say. Her voice was quiet but steady. I want to try. I want to do better. Jordan nodded, and Rebecca thought she saw a hint of approval in her eyes. Okay, then here's how this is going to work. Starting today, you're going to begin rebuilding trust with your team. That means listening more than you speak. It means considering ideas before dismissing them. It means admitting when you're wrong. I can do that, Rebecca said, though she wasn't entirely sure she could. We'll have weekly one-on-ones where we'll discuss your progress. I'll be honest with you about what I'm seeing. You need to be honest with me about what you're struggling with. Deal? Rebecca nodded. Deal. The all-hands meeting at 9 was surreal. Rebecca sat in the audience while Jordan was formally introduced as the new chief marketing officer. People applauded. Some looked excited about the change. Others looked nervous, probably wondering what it meant for their jobs. Jordan's speech was good. She talked about collaboration, innovation, and creating an environment where everyone's voice mattered. Rebecca felt each word like it was meant specifically for her. After the meeting, as people filtered out, several team members approached Jordan to welcome her officially. Rebecca watched from a distance, noticing how comfortable they seemed around her already. Kevin, the junior designer, caught her eye. Rebecca took a deep breath and walked over. "Kevin, do you have a minute?" He looked surprised, maybe a little worried. "Sure, Rebecca. That social media strategy idea you mentioned a few weeks ago, the one I shut down without really listening. Can you send me the details? I'd like to look at it properly this time." Kevin's eyes widened. "Really? Really? And I'm sorry I dismissed it so quickly before. That was unfair. It was a small thing. One tiny apology." But the look on Kevin's face made it clear it meant something. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Rebecca's career. Jordan was true to her word. She called Rebecca out every time she slipped into old patterns, every time she interrupted someone, every time her tone got sharp, every time she made a decision without consulting anyone. It was embarrassing. It was frustrating. There were days when Rebecca sat in her car in the parking lot, seriously considering just quitting, but she didn't. She kept showing up. She kept trying. Slowly, painfully slowly, things began to change. The first time Daniel didn't flinch when she called his name. The first time someone disagreed with her in a meeting and she actually listened instead of arguing. The first time she praised someone's work publicly instead of just pointing out what needed fixing. 6 months later, Rebecca was in the break room making coffee when she overheard 2 new employees talking. "What's Rebecca like to work with?" one asked. "Honestly, she's really helpful," the other replied. "She takes time to explain things and actually listens to your ideas. I was nervous at first because someone said she used to be really tough, but she's been great." Rebecca stood frozen, coffee pot in hand. They didn't know she could hear them. The praise was real, unfiltered. She poured her coffee and walked back to her desk, passing Jordan's office on the way. Their eyes met through the glass, and Jordan gave her a small nod. Not congratulatory, not overly warm. Just a simple acknowledgement. Rebecca nodded back. She still had a long way to go. Some days were harder than others. But for the first time in 8 years, Rebecca felt like she was actually leading instead of just controlling. Like she was building something instead of just maintaining power. And maybe, just maybe, that's what being a real leader had meant all along.